the purpose of this morning session was, of course, to get acquainted to each other's cases and to start discussing, and of course we can continue these discussions during the day and perhaps on other next events as well. But we also need to write a kind of report for not a long report, but a kind of policy brief about what we learned from having these discussions and bring it to the outside world so that people who are not here can also benefit from it. So what we have been trying to do this morning is by identifying some topics, some concerns that we share, not necessarily among the four of us, but are shared by more than one of the municipalities. And I would just like to present them to you. And I think this is what I would like to hear from you is did I make a good summary, or did we make a good summary of what we heard? Are there any other topics that we didn't notice but that you think these should be really addressed? So this is sort of first attempt to kind of distill from everything what we said, some common topics. So I'm just going to briefly introduce it, and then I would just like to hear your responses to them. They're a little bit small, but I want to have all of them on just one page to give an overview. So what we think we've heard as important topics or shared concerns is that came through, I think, in Bebra, but it's also the case in Ninove, maybe also to some extent in Voyas as well, that there is a kind of experience of decline, which could show itself in industries leaving, population growing, which is probably also the case in Feminiano, if part of the migration population leaves. And this experience of decline leads to a kind of loss or source of local pride and identity. Very clear in Bebra, the railway restructures, a lot of jobs, and people lose their sense of pride in the area. So I think that's a topic which we not necessarily heard to the same extent in all the cases, but comes back in some of the cases. I'm just going to go over them and then we can have an open discussion about them. And secondly, I think another topic that came back is the degree of centrality or a distance from the center. And I think there the cases are very different. We've heard from Bebra, it's a small municipality, but because it's at a railway junction, it is pretty central. It has a level of centrality. Whereas Voyels, of course, is the other extreme, is remote from center places, but at the same time the border is there, and the border brings a history of migration, which experience of migration, which then helps to do certain things. We've also heard the case of Ninove, which is at the language border, which creates all kind of specificities which also intervene in the way you organize integration policies. So there is something about the degree of centrality, the distance from a center, the position at the border, which I think is important also to take into account. Then, of course, we've heard several stories of yesterday as well as today of religious buildings. Religious buildings which may be a site for community building. We've been to the mosque yesterday, which is a very clear presented as this is a site for community building. At the same time, it would also be a source of political contention. And I think it was, I'm trying to remember now which was it Bebra where there was a contention about the mosque, or
about the church.
About the church, yeah. So religious building may also be a source of contention, of making a community visible that is not accepted widely. What is also important is bridging figures. You've heard the story of Botman, but you've also heard the social worker, which was your husband, I think. Yeah, Ulrich. So we've heard in all the cases there are bridging figures, people who are bridging between communities, bridging between a municipality and the local population, bridging between different organizations. In the literature they call boundary spanner. So there's a whole literature about the importance of having bridging figures between organizations, between communities, and the importance of these people. Very often they are individuals with specific characteristics, with specific expertise, and the role they play in these kind of integration policies. They're often very locally embedded, very knowledgeable about the local situation. Now you've heard about language. That was very clear in the Voyels case, the difficulty of how do you learn a language to people that do not want to stay, when there is a lack of teachers, but also in the case of Belgium, of course, with a history which migrants have nothing to do with, but are forced to take into account because of the local regulations. So language as well as a kind of, it could be a vector of integration, meaning that if people acquire the language, it's a step towards integration. But it may also be a symbol of integration, for the better or sometimes also for the worse, in the sense that it is imposed on people. The role of ethnic self-organizations, again in Voyos we've learned that Albanians and Turks and other people who've migrated and feel very Greek but still have this history of migration. They don't organize in self-organization, which is very different from most of the other cases where self-organizations are presented as being important organizations in integration policies or integration dynamics. So there's also a difference there, but it is a significant topic, we believe. Then the capacity to implement policies. And we've heard, and I think this is also visible from the reports, that in some countries when there is a policy that's actually implemented, there is capacity there. We've heard, of course, from the Greek case that there is a national, I think, regulation around guarantee, not guarantees, around guardians. There is that policy, but it's not implemented in the way the policies. And I think we've also heard from the Italian case, similar things. There are policies, but then the capacity to implement it on the local level is just not there. So I think the capacity to implement policies is, I think, also an important factor. Social services. To what extent are social services available? Are they accessible for all kinds of reasons? Do people pay for them? Are there language barriers? Is there enough outreach? But also, there might be competition. So I think in the case of Ninove, there is competition between services in Brussels and services in Ninove. There may be incoherence between services. I think in the Italian case, there were some references to it. That's sometimes a certain offer is made and then an offer next to it is doing something else or working against it. So there is something about services there as well. The historical evolution of policies. I think Belgium and Germany have a long history of migration policy, which goes back to the early 1980s. I think in Greece and Italy, there is at least, I don't want to call it a delay, but these policies came 20 years later, in a different environment, a different context. So there's also something about how long have these policies been there, how long have they matured, how long have they been in place, or what degree of continuity is there. Places of destination versus places of transition. So the question, are these migrants here transitioning to another place? Do they want to be somewhere else? How long are they going to stay where do they want to be? And we visited the center yesterday in the hills, and we also were curious, like, how do they see themselves? Do they want to stay in the area, or do they want to move on? So to what extent are they in a place of destination where they want to be on long term, or whether it's a transitioning phase to somewhere else? And then the demographic evolution. It's a bit of a broad term, but here we refer to shrinking populations, dormitory towns, although I don't think Ninove is a dormitory town, but maybe for the migrants that's the experience they have. But there's all kind of demographic evolutions there and contextual factors which we think also plays a role. So that's by way of overview. That's the topics we identified as these came back several times, and perhaps we should organize the report or the brief around these topics and to explain what we've learned about that.